Okay, so this is our second, or maybe it's third, lecture on kind of reproducibility and tools for reproducibility, skills for reproducibility. I am going to be talking today about Git and GitHub, and I'm going to be talking both to the people who are learners and the people who are more skilled, more experienced with it, and who are teachers. So I hope that both sides will get something out of this. I'll focus part of it on tips for learning Git and teaching Git and GitHub. And then I'll move into showing you some things about collaborating with other people on a repository. I don't think this is so applicable to the Hack Week situation, but it is very applicable to working and collaborating as a team. So as you move on, past this, if you want to collaborate with others on larger projects, these are, I'll demo for you one way in which we do this. I'll show you how we collaborated on the website that you're using. And then I will show you some project management tools. A lot of times when we talk about Git, we just talk about making commits and pushing. But there's a lot more to collaborating using GitHub than just those features. Today, when I talk about GitHub, I'm going to just say GitHub. However, GitHub happens to be the platform that we are using. It's a really popular one. However, if you, say, use GitLab, you just swap in GitLab for what I'm talking about. And the project management tools, there are other ways you can, other project management tools that interact with Git also. Okay. All right, so I don't know when I started really using version control with Git. It's been quite a few years now. But like for many people, those of you who use it a lot, you will empathize with this. My first attempts were very frustrating. Lots of this, merge conflict, I'm sad. I was the green creature there. And also many cases of, oh no, Git deleted my files. I laugh at this now because it's actually very hard to get Git to do that. You will not believe this as a beginner. You will feel like this thing is a demon in my computer and it is destroying my files. That is, if you feel like that, we have all felt like that. And then when you get really experienced, you look back and you laugh and you realize that you yourself were making some really small errors, but to you it appeared that it was deleting things. And you went on to Stack Overflow too much, and you tried things before you should be doing that. So there's a lot of frustration in the beginning. This is another cartoon that we often show. And so this is a classic solution when you are beginning. So you've gotten a little bit past this is just not working. So in the beginning, often what happens is you try and you simply fail. And you're like, I am not doing this, total waste of my time. And then you talk with your colleagues and they're like, yeah, you should do version control. And so you try again, you fail again, you feel like it deletes your files, and so there's usually a cycle of that. And then after a while, you start to actually be able to kind of use it and actually do version control. You can commit your changes, keep track of them, and then at that point, you kind of get to this cartoon, and that is you get yourself tied up in such a knot, you cannot figure out how to get rid of all these like naughty merge conflicts. Whatever state you've got in your repo in, you cannot sort it out. And so you just delete it and you reclone it. So that's another stage. So when you get to that stage, feel good. You are making progress. That means you actually have things that you can be deleting. And then at some point, you get out of that stage. I was joking with Ian. I did have to do that at one point, but I haven't had to do that in a very long time. But why did I persist? I persisted because there was a period when so one of the things that I do is I develop open source software. I did that big part of my career developing statistical software. And there was a stage where I went around, I was like, I want to develop my skills, I want to learn some new things. And so I went around and talked with people who I felt were better than I was at that time. And I asked them, what's the one skill or the two skills that you really either you wish you'd taken up earlier or that you really feel are essential to your work now? So these were people who were developing better open source software packages than I was. I respected the sort of the very stability of what they were creating. I wanted to be like that. And so I asked them, and all of them said version control. Many of them said that as the first thing. And version control is that, but version control means that as you work, you kind of stop periodically, type in, this is what I did, and then you commit that to a record. So you're making a record as you go along. That's kind of at the simplest way. Later, as I got better at it, it's actually a whole different way of thinking about your work, about rather than thinking about your work as this big thing, and you kind of like work away at it like that, and rather than doing that, you step back and you think about things as complete task. And so you're like, I will work on this task, I will complete this task, and it will not be a 6-month task, it will be a 1-week task. If they are 6 months tasks, they're too big. You need to take that 6-month task and make it smaller. So that nowadays, at this point in my kind of coding lifespan, I think of version control like that, as a different way of thinking how I organize my work. But in the beginning, it was just, no, I'm going to keep a record, and I'm going to be recording and pushing up, and I will push it up to a repository where my teammates, at least, if not the public, can take a look at it. So nowadays, this says 113 repositories. That's just in my personal account. You can see all the orgs here, down here. These are all the GitHub orgs that I either manage or I am part of. So I've got probably more closer to 1,000 repositories that I'm part of. I don't actively manage all those, but I pretty much have all my work now in GitHub. For those of you who are at NASA and are like, whoa, you have all your work at GitHub. Yes, I'm at NOAA and NOAA Fisheries. We really encourage that, and we want all our staff to be putting their work up in version control and get it up in GitHub. And at NOAA Fisheries, we do have an enterprise version of this. So when we do like work, we have an enterprise version, and we want everyone there so that the whole of NOAA Fisheries, we can look at each other's code. So we're not, well, we always, it's the nature of things, you reinvent the wheel. But hopefully by sharing more code, we can at least build on each other's work. We also use GitHub Free a lot, but that's like the stuff I'm showing you today, the teaching stuff that would be on the free version. But if I'm doing something that's, say, associated with a regulatory decision, that's definitely in the enterprise version. So today, I use it a lot, but I also teach it a lot. So now I'm going to switch into talking about learning and teaching new skills. In a weekend part of my life for the last 30 years, I've been a ski instructor, and now I teach at a local ski area. I teach a very large juniors program, but also for the last 12 years, maybe, I have been the technical director. I train coaches. I train people in how to teach skills. And I'm also a professional ski instructor, and that means that I have gone through a lot of training myself about how do you teach people skills and maximize their learning. So today I'm going to tell you a few key concepts from the field of teaching people new skills. And this image here, the thing I'd like you to take home from that is that the student is at the center. So if you are teaching someone, then it's the person you're teaching that is the student. If you're teaching yourself, you're doing self-learning, you need to kind of have yourself and where you are at the moment is at the center. So you want to be kind of thinking about where that student is in terms of their skill level at the moment and what their goals are. Your goal as a teacher for them could be different than their goals for themselves. So you need to try to listen to them and figure out what their goals are and then how they learn, what their skills are. It takes a lot of work as a coach, as a teacher, to develop the skills to listen to your students and figure out what is it from your students you need to be listening to kind of pick up where they're at. Okay, so I want to talk about two really key ideas about teaching new skills to people or to yourself. When I say to other people, I'm also talking about when you're trying to learn new skills yourself. So on the side here are these key features of teaching skills. First off is to isolate the skills. Okay, so what does that mean? So like when I am teaching coaches to teach skiing, I will give them a task like, okay, so I want you to, you have a student that can kind of get around on the track. I want you to teach them to go down this gentle hill. So then the new coach will immediately say, oh, and I'll say, hey, so show me kind of how, teach us this. So they come in and they immediately will go in and say, okay, well, we're going to get them into a pizza. Those you ski is like this. We're going to have our hands out like this, and then they immediately jump on the hill. So, okay, so let's back up. Now that's what we're going to get to at the end. Before we get there, what are the skills that student needed to do that whole thing? You just showed me the whole thing. But that student has never done all those little components. So we need to get them some experience with the little components. And so as coaches, they'll talk and they brainstorm together. What did it involve? Well, the big thing is the student needed to be able to move their feet this way. If somebody is coming in new, like as a skier, like I wouldn't even think of that. Like, well, of course, you have to do that. That's no big deal. But to somebody who's never been on skis, that's a big deal. They have never done that with big, long things on their feet. So they need to practice that. What does that mean, like when we're teaching Git skills? So like if you are teaching, you come into a class and you quickly kind of like you're scoping out what's the level, and you realize the person that you're working with really is not used to the command line. And so you are trying to teach them how to interact with Git from a terminal. Because as you'll see, there are some commands you need to do on the terminal. So you stop, you back up and say, wait a second. In order to do this task, which is to write, I need them to open a terminal and write git config -- global username, quote, their name, okay? Simple. But what did they have to do that? Well, they need to know how to open a terminal. They need to understand, like how they're typing this in. They need to understand that, they need to type it in exactly how you did it. If you put quotes around the thing in your notes, they need to understand that the quotes are not supposed to be there. So you kind of have to figure out, there's these elements that they, in order to do this successfully, there are some things they need to know that they might not know already. Okay, so isolating the skills so that you teach them one at a time. Breaking down the skills, so that sounds a lot like isolating the skills, but isolating the skills is teaching things one thing at a time. Breaking them down is the part of, okay, what are the skills you are going to need to get to here so that you can figure out which ones you isolate. And then this last one, this is really important. You learn easy kind of skills. Okay, not too easy, but not hard. So look at this graph here, and this is kind of the blue here is the sweet spot. So there is skill difficulty, and is your skill at that moment. So you are going to be moving around on that blue line, and your student, as an instructor or yourself, you need to figure out, like, where am I on that y-axis? Because that's going to determine how hard of a skill you're ready for right now. And if you tackle skills that are too hard for you, for where you're at the moment, it leads to a lot of failure, it leads to frustration and unhappiness, and it hinders your learning. Doesn't help you to get all frustrated. You're only making it worse, making it hard for yourself and for your student. So if you're running into too much frustration, it's too hard for you at the moment. So you need to work on easier skills so those easy things become even easier, and then you can tackle something a little harder. Conversely, if you are learning something that's too easy, then at that point you're not really learning that much. So you need to try to figure out what the skill is that you need to be learning at the moment. When I'm coaching and when I'm teaching people how to coach, I think it's that frustration and unhappiness part that is the bigger problem. If somebody's not learning much, okay, they're bored, but they're not getting so frustrated that they're like, forget it, I am not skiing again. This is the last time I'm doing this, right? So that's what happens. Or with Git, forget it, I am not learning this. This is a waste of my time. Okay, so that is what happens when you get into frustration. Okay, so what does that mean for me when I am teaching people Git and GitHub? So first, if I am teaching to beginners or I am advising somebody who is learning, I say start by working with GitHub. And the reason, so not working on your own computer, not doing any cloning, none of that stuff. You're just going to be working with the GitHub interface. And the idea here is that when you're starting to learn something, start with something that is really simple and that you're unlikely to get yourself into trouble. So if you're working just on GitHub, you're not making any branches, you're not going to run into merge conflicts. So you're going to be able to learn without tying yourself into knots. So what does that look like when I'm starting with somebody? So I start with that box here on the top. So I tell them work on a personal repo. That means don't start by collaborating with people. Okay? So don't start with the harder things, start with the easy things. A personal repo, and work in skill in this box right here until you are comfortable. So you want to learn skill 1. Practice creating a blank repository. Those of you who have done this 100 times, you'll do it and you won't even think about it. But for somebody who's learning, skill 1 is going to take some practice and they're going to mess it up a few times. So you need to practice skill 1 till you can get that, learn how to create it, learn how to delete it, do it until, I got it. And then skill 2 is editing the files on GitHub. This is a key thing here. You're not going to be working on your local computer yet because you're trying to learn about how to commit, how to make a change and do a commit in an environment where you're not going to get any merge conflicts. So if you stay in that box right here, you're not going to get merge conflicts. And only after that do I start working with people. So this, like if I'm teaching a workshop, here's like an hour, I'll come up with some activity that will be fun. We'll like create something on GitHub, but they'll be doing a lot of this editing and committing. And so that might be an hour. And then after that, we move on to the second box. And so as a teacher, to make sure I don't flood people with too much information about Git as I'm teaching them to work on their computer, I write down exactly what I'm teaching them, and I make sure I don't stray from that. So I didn't talk about this in the teaching, but as a teacher, what's really tempting is to flood people with a lot of information when they're beginning to learn. And that's one thing. And then the other thing we do is we're like, okay, you could do it this way, but this is another way to do it. But if you don't want to do it that way, you know, this is another way to do it. And it's really tempting to do that. And you have to learn as a teacher not to do that. And writing down like what you're teaching, or if you're teaching yourself, to focus on the skill, like, hey, I'm learning these skills, that helps you stay focused on what you're trying to learn. So these next skills are learning to clone your repository onto your computer, edit files locally, and commit those changes, and then push them. So just those skills, clone, commit. I didn't edit this slide. Actually, it's stage commit, and then push. And when I am teaching, I will choose how I'm doing this. And I will only show it that way. So for example, I'm going to show it just now. I'm going to show you how to do this on Jupyter Hub. And I'm not going to do it from the terminal, because I'm using this teaching approach of I want to minimize the information you're being exposed to and really focus on as few skills as I can. So I'm not going to try to teach you both the GitHub GUI, the Jupyter Lab GUI, actually, and the terminal. So let's just see what this looks like, how I would teach this myself. And then if you haven't done this before, you get to see what this looks like on the Jupyter Hub. All right, so first off, let's go here. And if we go to the Jupyter book, you're going to see this thing setting up Git. All right, OK, so let's head over. Good, good, good. OK, so what does it need? OK, so there are some things we have to do at the terminal. So I am going to use the terminal, but I'm not going to be cloning and pushing from the terminal. I'm going to do that from the GUI. Here it shows you these things that you need to run from the terminal. So you're not going to have the $sign there. Get rid of the $sign and just run these things. So attendee name, and then you put your own email here. So let's go over here and see what this looks like. I click on the blue thing. I get this. I click the terminal. And then I do, it's git config. I have this set up, but it won't hurt to do it again. Global user.name. Does one equal? No. OK. And then not your GitHub username, but your actual name. That. And then git config. Global user email. This way, when you're making commits, it knows who you are. There we go. Global, OK. And then this last one, I'm just going to copy this. I don't know why it doesn't have a default, but it'll complain if you don't do that. OK. All right, so that's what it needs to know. You've told it about you, and you've set how it's going to do pulls. So it has the information it needs. Yeah. Thank you. There we go. Better? All right. Okay. So next thing that we need to do is that we need to authenticate. In order to clone a public repository, I don't need to authenticate, but I'm going to show you how to push. And to push to a repository, you do need to authenticate. You need to tell GitHub who I am and give it credentials. And on a Jupyter hub, 2i2c hub, the way that we do this is the following. We're going to do gh scoped creeds. I have run this before. I probably won't get the same pop-ups as you. If you go on to this Setting Up Git on the Pace Hack Week, it shows you examples of what you will see and the buttons you need to push. Oh, hey, it did it. Oh, excellent. Oh, I was a little worried because you need to do this every morning because it only lasts 8 hours. So it says gives me the link. So easy peasy. I click that. I say continue. I'm already signed in. If I weren't signed in, it would prompt me to sign in. And now I paste in the code. V. And it's saying, hey, I'm requesting authorization from this. Are you OK with this? And I say, yes, I'm totally fine with that. It's only for 8 hours. So if something were to happen and somebody were to get on this hub, there's no way they'd get my credentials after 8 hours. OK, so now I'm set up. There we go.
So you cannot do any pushing or pulling without doing this credential part?
You can pull public repositories, yes, right, just fine.
You can't push. From a private.
Correct. Correct, yeah. Can't pull from private, can't push.
So just, I guess, first thing in the morning when you get on here, you put in your credentials.
Yeah, or you'll forget, and then when you try to push, it'll ask for your password, and you'll be like, OK. And so go here, click the blue thing, get yourself a terminal down here, and put gh-scoped creeds. It's all in that tab over here.
And if you restart the server, do you have to do that?
Yes, you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anytime you start a new server.
Yeah. But you can see it's quite fast, right? It didn't take long. Yes, it's a slight bit of a hassle, but it's a lot more security for you. So just go ahead and do that. OK, so now I have authenticated. Now what I want to do is I want to clone something. So in a Jupyter lab, this little icon here is your Git GUI. This is how you're going to clone and push things. If I click this right here, it is showing me how to interact with this particular repository. Why am I there? If you look here, you see I'm in this. This thing here is a repository. So when I click on that, it's telling me kind of what's going on with this repository. This part is saying I have no changes that I need to put in. I'm on the main branch. And look at these little things up here. This tells me that there's a change in the GitHub, the repository on GitHub. I can pull that and, oh, come now. Live coding. Here we go. Why did you do that? OK, dismiss. Try again. It lied. It does that sometimes. It lies. I always give it another try. If it says failed to pull, I just try again. OK, but what I'm going to show you is how to pull in your own repository. When you want to do that, you want to first get at the base level. Here I am, base level. And now, hey, goodness gracious. Yeah, weird. OK. try that. Okay, I'm there. Hey, thank you, Ian. Okay, teamwork, collaboration. Okay, so normally when you're here, if you click there, it's going to give you here to clone. And so you want to find something that you want to clone. Oops. Okay, and let's just go here. I think I have a test one here. Okay, there we go. Test book. Test delete, that's a good one. Okay. Good, what is this? Just some files, okay. So I copy the URL, so this up here. So I'm going to copy that. And when I go here, it is asking me for the URL. So I paste that. And I clone, and look at the name, it's test delete. And check. Taking a little while. Huh? Okay. All right. And here it is. It showed up here, so I can click there, and there we go. I have the files there. Okay, so that was skill one. I have cloned something onto my computer. Let me stop for a second. Any questions about, yeah, Kim?
If you cloned it in the wrong spot, like a spot where you don't want it, if you move that folder, do you have to reconnect it, or is it better just to?
Don't move the folder.
Huh?
Don't move the folder.
Move the folder.
Yeah. And if I am using this GUI right here, it's not going to let me clone anywhere but if I'm at the base layer. So don't try to make things complicated. You just need to get at the base layer and clone into the base. So the base means into your home directory. I'm here. I'm in my home directory.
Mine somehow ended up in our shared. That's why I was asking.
Huh?
Mine somehow ended up in our shared subfolder, and that's why I was asking.
Oh, okay. Yes, it will let you. I guess it will let you do it into shared also. Okay.
But we shouldn't be doing it there.
Shared is okay, depending what you want to do. I would say you're kind of asking for a little bit of trouble to sort of clobber each other, because you all can edit in shared.
So I can just delete that one because I haven't done anything in it. It's empty.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that, maybe you said this and I missed it, but the GH scope cards,
Uh-huh.
does that work on other devices? Like, if you were, I don't know, setting up GitHub on a computer that wasn't your own, where you're not using a token?
I believe if you have installed the the GH Scoped Creeds Python module, then yes, it would work. Yeah. So this replaces having to generate a token, and it makes the GitHub more secure, and also prevents it from being a target for people who might be like, "Yay! There's all these GitHub credentials on a Jupyter Hub. I think I'll go there and try to find them." Yeah. So, any other questions? All right. So that's our skill one. We have cloned. And then the next skill is to commit changes. So I'm going to open that by double-clicking it. And let's go into the README, something easy. So to commit a change, I need to make a change. So let's go and delete this and say hello. Okay. There we go. I saved it. All right. And now that I've made a change, I can go over here, and I see here changed, and it says 1. If I click on that, actually by default it's going to be clicked. It says what the change was. If I'm curious, I could do and check it out. You can see red, it deleted that. Okay, and I can see what it was. So there are 2 steps to making a I guess there are 3 steps to making a commit. The first thing that you need to do is tell it what files you want to make the commit about. So right now I only have 1, but let me make another change here. That's, file, new text, R, I don't know, what do I got here? QMD, okay, that's, oh, fine. Discard. Okay, I'm making things more complicated than I need to. I'm not going to show you multiple files. I'm going to go back here. But you can imagine, hopefully you can imagine that I could have lots of files here. And I might not want to make a commit for all of them. Maybe I'm just done with README. And so what I do is I click here. That stages it. And stage means, hey, these are the files I want to write a little note about. And down here is where I'm writing a little note. So a Git repository is special because it has a little like notebook, a little diary. And you can write into your diary what you were doing. And so I'm making a little diary entry. So I deleted stuff. In the beginning, don't overthink your comments. When you need them to be more detailed, you will figure it out. You will know that. You will discover it because you will not write them detailed, and you will regret it because you tried to search back in your history to find something. You'll learn that naturally. So what I did is I wrote a little summary, and then I hit commit. So now, if I look in the history, I see that I have deleted stuff. If I go on to here, I do not see that. My README looks the same. I can refresh, and it's the same. Because what I've done so far is I have made a change, and I've committed that change to the little book in my local repository, but I haven't told GitHub about it. I haven't pushed it up. So let me make another change. So hello again. Okay. Save. Oops. Sorry. Save. Okay. Oh, well. Okay. So now I go here. I've saved it. You can see it showed up here again as changed. I'm going to stage that, click that. It prompts me to enter something, more words. I have to scroll down. I have to commit. So I clicked it to stage it, and then I wrote the little note, and I clicked commit. There's two pieces of the commit, the stage, then commit. Look at the history. Now I can see I deleted stuff, and I added more words. But that's still, I haven't pushed it up. So the last skill is to push. And in this interface, the push is this little cloud, and it's up there. You push that, push, push, push. Oh, no. Dismiss. Permission denied. Oh, come on. You've got to be kidding. Test delete fatal. Unable to access the requested URL. Wow. Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah? Yeah.
And to be honest, that didn't fully work for me, but I ended up finding a solution that used the authentication token in it, kind of point to different info, and it seems like it worked.
Yeah, I've been committing all day today, so I don't know why it's chosen the most. You know, it knows that I'm teaching, and so it's clever that way.
So even the pros struggle with GitHub.
Dismiss. Okay. I don't know why.
Is this the case where you need to do the second step that's listed there with the...
Ah, yes. There we go. Yes, I've been pushing up to the other thing. Okay, this is good because it'll show me. what needs to happen. Okay, so I copy this again. Right. Continue. Paste that in. Continue. Okay, I authorize it. Good. Now I go back here and I say, visit this to manage the list. Okay. I'm going to configure. And here I am going to install. So I have been pushing for ages, but I never pulled something from my personal repository. I've always been pushing to the PACE org or to another org that we are working on. So there is
Access to your.
exactly. So I'm saying, yeah, it's okay to access mine. I will only have to do this once because it's installing it in my personal one. So you don't have to do this over and over again. So there it goes. It says it has access. Let's give it a go now. Push. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that was kind of good as actually that it did that because you would likely run into that also. Okay. Questions? Yep.
I have no familiarity with Jupyter Lab. Like, if I just use Jupyter Lab notebooks, is this available there too?
So using it on your computer?
If I wanted to use it outside of CryoCloud, does that even make sense, what I'm saying? Is that a thing?
You just need terminal.
Yeah.
You just use terminal on
Yeah.
your desktop?
Yeah. And install the GitHub, that GH scoped creeds. Yeah, Ian.
I don't think that will work on your desktop.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, because see that CryoCloud app,
It's through,
that's from CryoCloud.
okay. This Git, I have the lab.
We should test
It'll
it.
be available in CryoCloud.
Yeah.
There's an extra loop here because of security. We want to make sure we don't make the CryoCloud Jupyter another target. What was the number we got from UV? We learned that maybe some of you guys have heard of Carl Bender. He's kind of like Danny Bryan. Waiting for Danny Bryan. It's like the other Danny Bryan. Anyway, we learned from the CryoCloud chief that his credentials would go for $25,000 to $30,000 on the black market.
Yeah.
Scoped GitHub credential if somebody could find it on CryoCloud. So that's just a big bullseye that we don't want to put paint anywhere.
Yeah.
That's
So,
why this is a little extra security.
yeah. If you want to use a token, so the token would be the typical way on your own, or would it be a common way on your own computer? You can see the instructions here. If you're on a Windows machine, it won't be store. It will be something else. Does anybody who use Windows know off the top of their head what the helper is? It's, yeah, we don't have it because this is for a Jupyter Hub, but you can Google what that is. When I am teaching and people are working on their personal computers, I have them, when they're learning, I have them download GitHub Desktop and use that. And it's a very intuitive interface. You'll pick it up quickly. The cool thing is with desktop, when you go to preferences, settings here, you will sign in and you're done. No tokens ever. You just sign in. And when you go here, you're going to see a repo and you'll see your changes there. Okay, so I think I have, do I have 10 minutes left? 5. Okay, so I went way slower than I thought, but that's okay. I'm not going to go through these slides, but I'm going to show you some of these features. I jump right here to project management. Okay. So GitHub is not just the version control part. That's, you know, the making the commits and pushing them up to a distant repository. It also has some really great project management tools that teams use. This is the project boards. So when you go onto the GitHub platform, you'll see that you can create projects. This is an example of a project that came out of a Hack Week, actually. It's a IcePyX. It's a tool for working with, what was it? I think it's ICET2, yes. So it's a day for working with ICET2. The project, one way that teams will use a project board is they'll set up, hey, we have a certain task, and they create a board, and they list the specific tasks that they're going to be doing, and when they're done with that task. This way of organizing the work makes sure that everyone knows what the tasks involved are, and everyone focuses on that till they're done. Make sure that the team is completing a set of tasks. Another common way that people will use project boards is for a large team that needs to keep track of a lot of things. This is the project board for the NASA OpenScapes mentors. They run a lot of events like this Hack Week and workshops, and they have a lot to keep track of. So they're using the project board to keep track of that. And then I believe you can, yeah, they got all their notes here. You can see how it was resolved. If anyone on the team has comments, you can see that. You can search all this. So this makes a team much more effective. Everybody can see everything. It increases project awareness. Discussions are another way that people engage. Or another project management tool. I'll show you an example from a small team. This is a team that I managed, and we use every week we would have a check-in, and we wrote all kinds of notes from our check-in. We grabbed images. It's super fast to just throw these in, and you can link them to particular issues. And I find this record so helpful. This is from last year. I still go back and search this. I find this a lot more helpful for my repositories than like having a Google Doc, for example. Yeah. Yeah. So I find it most useful for this application. There are like groups like Quarto who are using them to engage with the community. This is a bit like if you've used Discourse. This is like Discourse, but it's integrated into GitHub. The nice thing being integrated into GitHub is it can link it to particular issues. So you can do @ and specify an issue, and it'll link back to that. Okay, last one I want to show is, last two, GitHub issues. Now, this is the most used collaboration tool. Most big repos will use this feature. Super easy to create issues, causing me to slur here. You'll click on that and you put here, you put whatever you want. And this is a fantastic way for teams to have discussions about things, to keep track of things. Something pops into your head, you just throw it in there, you make sure you don't forget. It's much better than having a million sticky notes up. So I encourage you to use that issues feature. Super helpful, very easy, very intuitive. Last one is releases. If you are creating something that, let's say you're creating a Jupyter book, and at the end of a certain date, you're like, okay, it's end of the Hack Week, it's done. Or it's the repo for the Hack Week, this is what we completed at the end of the Hack Week. You can create releases. Let's look at this. This is a package I maintain, but all the repositories will have this unless you've disabled it. It has releases. You click that. You draft a new release, and what it does, it takes everything in the repository and it bundles it up into a zip file. It's like, there you go. Somebody can go back in time. It really helps with reproducibility because then people can say, hey, I did this with this version, or let's go back and look at that version. Pretty sure, yeah, if I click here, no, let's go back in time. If I click here, I can see what was involved in there. So it's got a great record and compare. It's not doing it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is another neat feature with the releases. Say, let's pick an old one here. So if I click on that tag, I am now, here it is, that version. I am now in this repository in the state it was in at that release. This will save you because invariably on a big project, you're going to make changes and you're going to be like, whoa, wait a second. It started breaking about that release. We've just discovered it 9 months later that this little bit is breaking. What on earth did we do? And you need to go back and look at what it was like before it was broken. So, all right, let's stop there. Yeah.
I kind of have like best practices questions.
Yeah.
So I noticed that you have the like hidden files pushed to some of the directories. Like, you know, if you're using a Jupyter notebook, there's going to be like a .ipynb checkpoint thing. Like, is it best practice? Like, do people try not to push all of the junk? Like,
Yeah.
you can do git
Yes.
add everything or
Yeah.
git add specific files.
Yeah. So there's this file here called Git ignore. That one is not a good example. Let's go on to the Pace Hack Week one. Yeah, but yeah, definitely you don't want to be pushing things you don't need to.
I guess my question is like, is it worth my time and effort to not push those things, or is it better?
Well, it's easy not to push them. There's a file here called git.gitignore,
Yeah.
and you can add things there. You can look at other ones. Yeah, typically people won't push the checkpoints.
So then that'll tell it when you do git add not to push
Yeah,
those specific
yeah.
files.
Right, yeah.
Just to add to that, if you don't mind, Eli.
Yeah.
So what, for example, when we were developing, I know I'm probably speaking over you, but when we were developing the notebooks for you guys and we were collaborating on them, to avoid exactly this INB checkpoints issue, we used a tool called JupyText, which let us convert back and forth between a Jupyter notebook and just a .py file. And so that way we can avoid having all the metadata get pushed. And so we would basically have in our git ignore, don't push anything in IPyNB checkpoints, don't push .ipynb files at all, which you can just do with star.ipynb, right? That way Git will know not to push those files. And then we would only track those .py files, and then when we would then pull changes, we would just automatically convert those all back into notebook form. If that answers your question.
Yeah, in terms of like learning best practices, I wouldn't worry too much about it in the beginning unless you are working with like AWS tokens or something, then worry about it a lot because you do not want to push those. Fortunately, GitHub will detect it and then it'll delete it and then it will alert AWS of what you've done and you'll be in a mess. But if you're not working with something like that, in the beginning, I wouldn't worry too much about it. And then once you get comfortable using GitHub, then look at other people's repositories that you're like, I like this one. I like the way they do things. I think they probably have good practices. Start checking out their .gitignore and copy what they do. That's a good way to learn. Yeah.
So for us, like
Yeah.
our project repo, should we be cloning the repo to our individual spots, adding things there, and then pushing it and not saving our stuff? Like right now we have a folder on the shared public.
Yeah.
So should we have our individual stuff? I'm just trying to figure out the
Yeah.
best way to, like, 'cause we're all actively working on
Yeah.
stuff.
For a hack,
Practices
yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. So I would say for the hack week, don't do things that will slow you down. If working in a shared drive and talking with each other so you don't accidentally munch each other's work, if that is working for you and you are making great progress, this is not a hack week about learning how to use Git.
Okay.
If you are, so by the end of it, yeah, you'll probably want to, put things into a repo so it's not on the hub and you can all have access to it for your team. If you are using a repository, this is what the team I'm on is using. This is a sample repository structure it's commonly used in Hack Weeks. You have a folder called contributors. We each are pushing there, and that ensures that none of us goes over anyone else. So we won't get any merge conflicts. Only at the very end, when we're like, yeah, we're done, then we move things out into notebooks.
And is there's a piece Hack Week org?
Yeah. But you can create this repository yourself. Just, pick one of you. You can put it in your personal account.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, it's 2:02. Ian's standing up. Woohoo.